Hello everyone, I'm Gagan and welcome to my YouTube channel. So I'm starting this channel because I want to teach people who don't have a strong data analytics background the key concepts, skills, and tools that they'll need to know if they want to start applying data analytics to their workplace. I believe knowing data analytics is extremely important to grow in your career, no matter what role you're in. So much of business decisions are based off data. It's not only important to know how to understand and read data, but also how to present it to your audience in a way that's easy to comprehend and digest. So, let me give you a little bit of background about me first. So, I've been a project management consultant for about 3 years now, and my work typically comprises of typical project management stuff. So, building plans, managing stakeholders, finances, and so forth. And it also includes a little bit of change management work. So now you may be asking, what does my background have to do with data analytics? Well, during my time working with my clients, and even before I got into consulting, it's been very common for me to have to work in with data analytics. Uh, it's normal for me to have to take large data sets, for me to have to analyze them, and bring back visual dashboards and strategic plans back to higher level executives. So as I continued to do this work over the years, and as I dove deeper into data analytics, it became very apparent to me how important it is to master data analytics. That's when I decided to teach myself key data analytic concepts and tools like Power BI, which helped me really elevate my data analytic and presentation skills. So I know how hard it is to learn data analytics on your own because, well, I've had to. And I want to share with you guys how I taught myself data analytics and how I was able to successfully apply the skills and concepts to my work. So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to use Power BI. The reason I'm starting with this tool is because it's a very powerful tool. I find it better than Excel, and you can learn the key concepts and skills that you'll need for data analytics by learning how to use this tool as well. And not only that, you'll be able to apply and use this tool in your work right away. So, why learn Power BI? Well, I've done a lot of work in Excel, which is the most common tool every business uses. And I've had to gather and analyze data. I've had to look for patterns, trends. I've had to come up with strategic plans, build pivot tables, pivot charts, and all that. And through my years working with Excel, I've noticed some very good pros to Excel, but also some very heavy cons as well. The thing I noticed with Excel is that it's a very great tool when working with smaller data sets, but it becomes increasingly difficult when the dataset becomes larger and larger. If you have a few hundred lines, it's really no issue. But when you start getting into the thousands, Excel itself starts having issues handling all this data in the application. And not only that, since you're going to have to be working with formulas a lot that connect to very specific cells, it's not so great for reproducibility. Now, what I mean by reproducibility is, let's say if you want to use, let's say you're using your current Excel sheet and you want to use the same exact formula on the next, but it's not really the same exact data, it's not on the same exact lines. Instead of copying, pasting, and changing the cells itself, you're going to have to do a lot of extra work to make the same function work from one sheet to the next. The other thing is, I don't really find the charts, the pivot tables, really all that attractive in Excel. That's why I typically analyze the data in Excel and then move straight into PowerPoint instead. Now, the reason I highly recommend learning Power BI, especially when you're learning data analytics for the first time, is because I find Power BI just a much superior tool to Excel in terms of data visualization. You're able to create much more appealing dashboards in Power BI. They're much more dynamic and interactive, and they really let you and your stakeholders really dig into data for deep insights. This allows you and your stakeholders to easily spot trends and look for areas of improvements. I'll get deeper into the features that Power BI offers later, but the features that Power BI is able to offer that Excel doesn't really help me become a better data analyst because they not only help me become better at analyzing and presenting data, but it also helped improve my communication skills because I was able to do more with the data and it enabled me to present the data in a easy to follow and compelling way where I was able to build a story out of it. The beauty of Power BI is that it's so easy to begin using because you just have to throw your data set into Power BI and you could begin building dashboards almost immediately. But when you go into the other features of Power BI like DAX and Power Query, what you're able to do in Power BI becomes almost limitless. Learning Power BI and data analytics at the same time can seem overwhelming, especially as a complete beginner. But I'll walk you through my journey of how I learned Power BI, and I'll provide you with a roadmap breaking down the key concepts and the resources I use to learn both Power BI and data analytics. Now I'll be breaking down my timeline week by week. So in week one, I would suggest heavily focusing on understanding tidy cleaning and ETL. So ETL is short for extract, transform, load data, and tidy cleaning essentially just means how you organize your data. Learning these two concepts moving forward is going to be extremely important because the way you structure your data is extremely important in Power BI. If it's not structured in a certain way, Power BI is just going to get confused and not give you accurate information that you're looking for. For example, Power BI can get very confused if, let's say, you have one column containing your sales numbers. And let's say in some rows, you have your numbers written out numerically, and in other rows, you have it written out as a string. So you have one written out as ONE. This can be extremely confusing to Power BI because it won't understand what you're trying to tell it. And this is essentially the concept of tidy cleaning, just making sure your information is written out properly, structured in a proper way, which you'll learn as you learn more about Power BI. And what I explained to you is essentially tidy cleaning, making sure your columns, your rows, all your data is written out in a structured way that the system can comprehend. On top of tidy cleaning, it's important to know how to extract your data set, load it into Power BI, and transform the data as needed without having to go back to the source. These two concepts, tidy cleaning and ETL, are very important to know, and they build a foundation for what you'll be working on next. Now, when you have an understanding of how to organize and manipulate data, for week two, you're going to be focusing on data modeling. Data modeling is the heart of Power BI because it's what allows you to work with multiple tables and allows you to create relationships between them. What I mean by this is, let's say you have one table containing all your sales for all your products and how many products to which locations. Sometimes companies don't want to overcrowd your sales chart, so you might have a separate one listing out your vendors and information about them and what they buy, and maybe another table that goes more deeply into the actual products that you have. Data modeling will connect all these tables and allow you to really build deep insights from each of these. As you learn data modeling, I heavily recommend you understand the different schemas that are involved in modeling. The most common of which is the star schema. On top of schemas, make sure you understand what fact tables are and what dimension tables are as well. So for week 3, we'll be learning DAX. Before moving on to DAX, make sure you have the previous concepts down, as they'll be extremely important, otherwise DAX won't work properly. DAX stands for Data Analysis Expression, and it is a formula language that Excel uses. You don't need a coding background to use DAX, but having an Excel background will really help when learning DAX, because the formulas are very simple, just Power BI has its own minor differences compared to Excel formulas. DAX is extremely important to learn. You'll notice that it's easy to pick up but hard to master, and what I mean by that is It allows you to do almost anything within Power BI when you're looking for certain data. So, for example, let's say you have a table filled with your products, your sales, all that information over the past year. You can look for very simple stuff using DAX, such as total sales. You could look at year-to-date sales. You could look at the total number of shipments this past year, your profit margins. And these are very short formulas that are easy to write out. So those are some simple DAX formulas, but DAX can become even more complex than that and allow you to find more. So for example, let's say you start mixing in your sum formula with some filters, so you filter out certain weeks or months, and let's say you want other tables to be included as well. As you learn about DAX, as you learn how to write out the formulas, it'll allow you to find almost anything that you need in your data set. There are certain formulas for DAX that you must know that I'll be talking about a little later. But learn these formulas first, and then move into combining them and making more complex DAX formulas later on. Lastly, week 4. This is the fun week where you begin experimenting with data visualization. This is where I would recommend loading in your own data sets, whether it's dummy data or real data, and just playing around with the dashboards and different features that Power BI has. Start putting in different charts like bar graphs, pie charts. Start using some filters and slicers, and see how they interact when you're looking around and playing with your data. But if you want to really solidify what you've learned, what I would highly recommend is looking up guided projects on YouTube. These projects, these are the projects that I use to really understand how data analysts use Power BI and their train of thought as they begin making these different dashboards. These videos are typically anywhere from 1 to 3 hours long. Obviously, I would recommend starting with shorter videos and maybe moving on to longer ones. However, they're extremely useful, these projects that other YouTubers have. They typically come with dummy data sets from my experience. And as I'm following along with the YouTubers, I start to see how they model their data. I start to see how they write their DAX formulas, what they look for when they're looking at their data, how they clean it up. So it was really useful for me to see how different YouTubers handle data differently because they all have their own different variation, and it kind of helped me create my own as well. Additionally, when you're working through these projects, I've noticed a lot of these YouTubers also show some features that I may not have found on my own. After doing some guided projects, however, I would recommend starting to do your own projects. So what I would recommend here is go onto Kaggle.com and pull off some data set from there that someone's posted and start playing around with it, make your own equations, make some year-to-date sales, make some total sales, uh, look for profit margins, just start writing your own formulas and refer to the guided projects or any formulas that you found online for help along the way, because this will really allow you to think through everything after you've experienced how people approach using Power BI. As I mentioned previously when I was discussing week 4, YouTube was the biggest resource that I used when learning Power BI. There is a lot of resources from other analysts online who teach you data modeling, who teach you about tidying, and who show you how to do this step by step as you're working with data in their guided projects. So take some time looking through YouTube, find YouTubers who help you the most, and really look for everything I discussed earlier to solidify your knowledge of Power BI. In addition to this, the Microsoft official Power BI documentation online was very helpful when I needed to know how certain formulas worked. It's a go-to tool as you become more of an expert of Power BI. Also, there's a cheat sheet from CodeCamp that you guys can Google and look up that contains all the basic DAX formulas that you should know. These include time functions, logical functions, so things like sum, filters, setting in times, and so forth. It's a very helpful tool to use as a resource when you're beginning to create your own projects. So to wrap up, I've given you guys a clear path on how to learn Power BI and foundational data analytics. The biggest difficulty for me when I was initially learning all this was just knowing what to learn. I spent a lot of time researching Power BI, but I wasn't sure what should I learn in what order because there is an efficient way to do this. So it took me longer than it should have to learn Power BI. However, I did make it there, and that's why I wanted to share this timeline with you guys of my journey. Hopefully, you find this timeline and these concepts extremely helpful, and hopefully, it helps you grow in your career. If you liked this video, please like, subscribe, and comment below because I would love your feedback. I'm excited to share my knowledge of data analytics with you guys, and in the future, I'm going to be making more videos going over the concepts I previously talked about. So in the future, you'll see videos regarding data modeling, examples of cleaning, um, and I'll possibly build some tutorials as well. Thank you for watching, and until next time.